this video, we are going to talk about graphs of polynomial functions, specifically third-degree functions and fourth-degree functions. But before that, before we graph such functions, let's talk about the characteristics of the graph of a polynomial function. So first, if the sign of the leading coefficient is positive, therefore, the endpoint of the graph should be upwards. Okay, and then if the sign of the leading coefficient is negative, therefore the graph should end, or the endpoint of the graph should end downwards. Okay, and then the polynomial n is greater than 2, so it means that the degree of the polynomial function that we will graph is or should be greater than the second degree. Kapag kasi second degree, we all know that that is a quadratic function, and we already, or you already tackled about quadratic function when you were on grade 9. So therefore, we will limit this lesson up to the third and fourth degree functions lang yung i-graph natin. So yun. And then the number of turning points is n minus 1. Okay, so it depends on the degree that is given. Let's say the given is a third degree function. So the number of turning points is 2 because n minus 1, it means degree minus 1. So 3 minus 1. Therefore, the graph will have 2 turning points. Kapag naman fourth degree yung given, you have 3 turning points kasi 4 minus 1, that is equal to 3. And then, next is the number of times the graph of polynomial degree n crosses the x-axis at most endpoints. So, it depends on the zeros of the polynomial functions, or tinatawag din natin yung mga points na yan na x-intercepts. So, kapag sinabi natin x-intercepts, these are the points that crosses the x-axis in the Cartesian plane, okay? And we already discussed about how to get the zeros of the polynomial function. So, I believe you can get that and plot that on the Cartesian plane. And then lastly, the graph of a polynomial function is a smooth curve with rounded corners and no sharp corners. So, again, in sketching the graph of a polynomial function, either third degree function or fourth degree function, the ends must be a smooth curve. So, hindi pwede na sharp yung edges ng graph. Dapat ay round yung corners or smooth curve, pa-curve siya. Okay? So first, let's talk about the graph of a third degree function. So ayan, let's say we have the given third degree function. So 3, of course, it is an odd number. Let's say the sign of the leading coefficient in the given third degree function is positive. So it means, or ang mangyayari sa graph niyan, ang starting point ng graph mo will be downwards or galing sa baba ng Cartesian plane. Okay? And then the endpoint should be upwards. Okay? And then yung endpoint mo dapat pataas na, upwards. Let's say I have this sample graph. So ito, halimbawa, yung sample graph ng third degree function na positive yung leading coefficient. So napansin nyo yung graph niya, it started downwards here in the Cartesian plane, and the graph ends upwards. So yan, this is the sample graph. How about if the given is a third degree function, but then the sign of the leading coefficient is negative? So like this example, no? So the degree, let's say, is, the third degree function, and then the sign of the leading coefficient, let's say it is negative. Therefore, the starting point of the graph should be upwards or pataas dapat. And then the endpoint of the graph should be downwards or pababa na. And this is the sample graph of this example or this condition, no? So, yung starting point, napansin niya galing sa taas, it should be upwards kasi, and then the endpoint of the graph should be downwards or sa baba na dapat siya. So, yeah, that is the sample graph of third degree functions. Now, let's try to graph a third degree polynomial function. Let's say we have this example number 1. And by the way, In this lesson, the given that I will give is already in its factored form. Kasi mahirap mag-factor ng mga function na third degree pataas. So, para hindi na pareho tayo mahirapan, I already given na naka-factored form na. Okay, like this example, let's say we have f of x is equal to x plus 1, quantity x plus 1 times quantity x minus 2 and quantity x minus 4. So this is a third degree function. Now we have three factors and their multiplicity are all 1. So this is an example of a third degree function. So before natin i-sketch yung graph ng third degree polynomial function, we will look for these terms. We will look for the values of this term. So we will look for the zeros of the polynomial function. We will also look for the multiplicity of these functions. And then the Y-intercept, which is the first turning point of the graph. Okay, yung Y-intercept, siya yung unang turning point ng graph. And then we will also look for the second turning point. By the way, we are talking about third degree functions. So, ang number ng turning points natin is n minus 1. So, that is 3 minus 1. Therefore, we will look for two turning points, okay, ng graph. So, yan. Silang apat yung hahanapin natin before natin i-sketch yung graph ng third degree polynomial function. So, in finding the zeros of this function, I already discussed about that, no? The given is already in factored form, so hindi na kayo mahihirapan. I-equate lang natin bawat isa sa 0 and get the value of x. So, the first one, or the first 0 is equal to negative 1. And then the second 0, we have x minus 2 equals 0. The second 0 is equal to positive 2. And then the third one is equal to 4. So we have 3 zeros. Third zeros ng polynomial function, we have negative 1, 2, and 4. So list down lang natin siya. So we have negative 1, and then we have 2, and then we have 4. And then, nakuha natin yung zeros na to by equating each factor into 0. Diba? And then, next is, we will look for the multiplicity of each factor. So, when we say multiplicity, ito yung bilang kung ilang beses lumabas yung factor doon sa given polynomial function natin. So, in this case, si quantity x plus 1, isang beses lang siya lumabas. Therefore, ang multiplicity niya ay 1. Ang degree niya ay 1, ang exponent niya ay 1, hindi natin nakikita because that is invisible. Okay? As well as ito, yung zeros ni quantity x minus 2 is 2, ang multiplicity niya also ay 1. As well as this, no, quantity x minus 4, ang multiplicity niya din ay 1. Kaya yan naging third degree function. This is what I'm talking about a while ago. 1 plus 1 plus 1. Or hindi ko pa siya nasasabi. So, kaya third degree function siya. And then, the next thing that we will be looking for is the Y-intercept, which will be the first turning point of your graph. No? Sulat natin siya. First, TP na lang ilalagay ko, no? Turning point of the graph. And then, you will be also looking for the second turning point of your graph. Kasi we have, how many turning points? We have 2 turning points. Kasi this is a third degree function. Okay, so how can we solve the Y-intercept or the first turning point of the graph? Okay, so ganito lang po yan. Kapag magsasolve tayo ng Y-intercept, we are looking for the value of y or the f of x in the function. So, para malaman natin yung value niya, ni y or ni f of x, you will assume na x is equal to 0 in the function. Okay? You're going to assume na x is equal to 0 for us to be able to find the value of the y or the f of x. Kasi si y and f of x, they are just the same. Okay? Si f of x ay equal or same siya sa y. Okay? So, we will be looking for the value of y or the value of the f of x. Yun yung y-intercept mo. Para makuha natin yun, we will assume na x is equal to 0. So, in this, using this polynomial function, of course, the given, let's assume na yung lahat ng x's dito sa given natin ay equal sa 0. So, this will be f of 0 is equal to quantity 0 plus 1, 0 minus 2, and then 0 minus 4. And then, pakisimplify lang lahat. So, we have f of 0 is equal to 0 plus 1, that is 1, 0 minus 2, that is negative 2, 0 minus 4, that is negative 4. And then, of course, there is a parenthesis, therefore, the operation should be multiplication. So, paki-multiply lahat. So, 1 times negative 2, that is equal to negative 2 times negative 4, that is equal to positive 8. So, now that we have the value of the y-intercept, sulat lang po natin siya using ordered pairs or in ordered pair na form. Okay? So, yung ordered pair natin, pag sinulat natin yan, is equal to, yung x natin kanina 0, di ba? We assume. So, 0 and then yung y natin is 8. Okay. Next is, how do we look for the second turning point? So, mamaya natin malalaman kung paano solvein yung second turning point. What we'll be doing is, we will graph this given. Okay? So, the first thing that we need to graph is the zeros of the polynomial function. But then, ma'am, how can we graph if the given is like this? Hindi naman sila naka-ordered pair. Okay? Negative 1, 2, and 4. Paano namin siya, ma'am, mag-graph? So, we solve for the value of x, di ba? So, pag sinulat natin na ordered pair yan, yung zeros na kinumpit natin, that will be the value of your abscissa or the x-coordinate. So, negative 1, ma'am, ano po yung y natin? Always 0. Okay? And then we have 2, 0. We have 4, 0. Kaya nga, I discussed a while ago na yung 0 of the polynomial or zeros of the polynomial function na makukuha nyo, that is also the X-intercept of the graph. Okay? So, ayan. We now have the X-intercepts or the zeros of the polynomial function. So, we can now graph. And then, the multiplicity, hindi naman natin masyado siyang kailangan. And then, Y-intercept meron na. So, kapag ginraph po natin yan, so, sulat ko lang ulit yung given na ordered pair kanina. So, yung zeros or yung x-intercept natin, so, yung x-intercept natin kanina, we have intercepts. Madami sila. So, negative 1 and then 0. We have 2 and then 0. We have 4. I'm so sorry if my handwriting is not so good. Ayan yung x-intercept or yung zeros ng polynomial function natin. Okay? And then yung Y-intercept natin, which will be the first turning point of the graph na sinolve natin kanina, is equal to 0, 8. Ayan. So, i-graph natin yung mga ordered pair o yung mga points na yan. So, first, yung mga X-intercept muna yung i-graph natin. So, we have negative 1 and 0. So, the point is right here. Ayan. Negative 1 and 0. We have 2. We have 2 and 0, and then we have 4 and 0. So, yan yung mga graph ng, plot lang. Plot ng X-intercept or ng zeros ng polynomial function natin. And then, yung Y-intercept natin, yung graph niya is along the Y-axis. Okay, so 0, 8 should be here. Now, tapos na ba tayo? No, not yet. We will be looking for the value of the second turning point. So, yung graph natin, ayan na. But then, kulang pa siya. Kasi kapag pinag-connect natin tong points na to, we will be looking for the ordered pair that is missing in this part, in between the plot of 2 and 0 and 4 and 0. So, in between nila, sa pagitan nila, we have 3. No? Yung y natin is, yung x, value ng x natin is 3. So, paano na po, ma'am? What should we do next? Okay, so ganito lang po, no? Ang nawawala kasi is yung ordered pair. Napansin nyo, in between negative 1 and 0 and 2 and 0, we already have a plot here. So, may pupuntahan yung graph natin. But then, in between 2, 0 and 4 and 0, walang papatunguhan yung graph natin. No, katulad nung nakita niyo ng mga example graph kanina, the graph of a third degree function is just like n. N dapat yung maging shape. Okay? So, kulang tayo ng second turning point. Paano natin malalaman yon? By observing what is in the middle of two X-intercepts. Okay? So, yung walang nakagitna na ordered pair, ito yon, si 2 and 0 and 4 and 0. In between them, we have 3. So, gagamitin natin si 3 as your x to solve the second turning point of the graph. So, paano po yun, ma'am? We will assume na x is equal to 3. Saan natin nakuha si x is equal to 3? Dito natin siya nakuha. Okay? Ayan, dyan natin siya nakuha. And then, we will solve for the value of the y-coordinate para malaman natin kung saan natin ipa-plot, and that will be the second turning point of the graph. Okay? So, we will assume that x is equal to 3, and we will solve for the value again of y, no? And then, create an ordered pair to plot it in the Cartesian plane here. So, again, using the given, papalitan lang natin lahat ng x's dito sa function ng 3 for us to be able to solve the value of y. So, we have f of 3 is equal to quantity 3 plus 1, and then di ata siya kasha, no? 3 minus 2, and then quantity 3 minus 4. Ayan. And then, solve natin. F of 3 is equal to 3 plus 1, that is equal to 4. 3 minus 2, that is equal to 1. And then 3 minus 4, that is equal to negative 1. Okay? And then i-multiply natin sila lahat. So we have 4 times 1 times negative 1, that is equal to negative 4. Therefore, ang second turning point ng graph mo, sulat natin siya in ordered pair. X mo is 3. Okay? And then yung y na na-compute mo is negative 4. So this is now your turning point. Specifically, your second turning point. Okay? So sulat natin siya. So, second turning point mo, ito yung unang turning point mo, di ba? So, yung second turning point, ito yung first turning point mo na sinolve kanina. Ang second turning point, yung sinolve natin, ngayon lang. Which is 3 and negative 4. So, i-graph natin siya. Or ipa-plot natin siya. So, pag pinlat natin si 3 and negative 4, it should be in this area. Okay? 3 and negative 4. And then, right after natin ma-plot lahat ng points, we will all connect them. Okay? Hindi pa yan yung graph. We will connect them. So, kapag kinonnect natin siya, starting from this, starting downwards, and then pataas, nagmo-move yung lines. Ano ba to? Wait. Nagmo-moves kasi yung lines, hindi na exact dun sa points. So, yeah, we need to adjust. So, assuming that this will be the illustration of your graph, no? Pagpasensyahan na yung medyo namumove kasi kapag nag-draw tayo. Okay? So, yan, that is the graph of the given function. But then, I am going to require you to write the characteristics of the graph. So, I'm just going to erase everything here. So, yan yung itsura ng graph dapat. I'm so sorry if hindi na exact dun sa points kasi kapag nagdo-drawing ako dito, nagmo-move yung lines. Okay? But then, kapag ginraph nyo siya, kailangan exact dun sa points. Okay? And then, napansin nyo, the graph should be, yung edges niya dapat hindi sharp, no? Kailangan smooth curve, just like what I'm talking a while ago. So, ito na yung graph, no? Ating third degree. Ayan, nagmo-move siya, oh. Degree function na given. So, hindi ko na isulat dito yung characteristics, but then, kapag nag-test kayo, sulat nyo sa baba yung characteristics ng graph. Okay? So, sa characteristics, ang hahanapin ko is, okay, dito ko na isusulat yung characteristics. So, isusulat yung characteristics below the graph. And the characteristics of the graph that I am going to look for is the degree, the sign of the leading coefficient. So, LC na lang ilalagay ko, no? Sign ng leading coefficient yan. And then, the starting point of the graph. And then, the endpoint. So, sa starting point and end point, it's either upwards or downwards lang naman yung sagot. And then, the number of turning points, TP. TP na lang ilalagay ko. So, in this graph, ano ang degree niya? So, this is a third degree graph. Diba? So, this graph is a third degree graph. So, it's either, sa degree, it's either third and fourth lang naman. Kasi yun lang naman yung i-graph natin. Ang sign ng leading coefficient natin, this is according sa given, positive. Okay, wala naman kayong nakikitang negative sign sa labas ng mga factor, therefore, positive siya. The starting point of the graph, according dito sa graph natin, the graph will start downwards, which is tama dun sa characteristics na diniscuss ko a while ago. And then the end point of the graph is upwards. And then the number of turning points, so this is n minus 1, degree minus 1. So we have a third degree polynomial function. So we have 3 minus 1. We have 2 turning points. Okay? So yun yung mga characteristics na hanapin ko below the graph. Right after nyo i-graph yung given na polynomial function. And then, another reminder, sa third degree function, paano namin malalaman na positive or negative yung sign ng leading coefficient if the given is already in factored form? So, ganito lang yung mga possible na i-given ko kasi. Let's say I have this given. And then I have this given. So yan, napansin nyo, yung given natin kanina is just like this first example, di ba? Kaya siya positive kasi positive siya. Wala kayo nakikita na sign. But then, kapag nilagyan ko ng negative sign sa labas ng mga factors, therefore, the sign of the leading coefficient is negative. Okay? So, ganun lang para hindi kayo malito kung saan natin hahanapin yung sign ng leading coefficient kasi the given is already in factored form. Next is sketching the graph of a fourth degree function. But then, we need to look for the characteristic of the graph first. So, this is a fourth degree function. And, of course, 4 is an even number. And let's say the sign of the leading coefficient is positive. So, the graph or the starting point of the graph is upwards. And then the end point should be upwards also. Okay, so upwards, upwards. They are what do you call that? The same, no? And then, how about if the sign of the leading coefficient is negative? Let's say the sign of the leading coefficient is negative. So the starting point of the graph is downwards or should be downwards, and the end point should also be downwards. So let's say we will sketch the graph of this fourth degree function. So, napansin nyo kaya siya fourth degree kasi we have 2 plus 2 here, that is equal to 4. No? And then, just like in the third degree function, we will look for the zeros, which will be the X-Intercept and the first and second turning point of the graph. Okay? So, kanina sa third degree function, yung zeros ng polynomial function mo kasi, that is your X-intercept na. Okay? This will be the X-intercept kanina dun sa third degree function. Okay? So, dito sa fourth degree function, we have the zeros, which will act as the X-intercept. And this will also be the first and second turning points of your graph. Okay? So, hindi lang siya mag-act as X-intercept. Okay, this will also be the first and second turning point of your graph. By the way, we will look for how many turning points if the given is a fourth degree function. So we will look for 3 turning points. So ayan, meron na agad tayong first and second turning point, which is the value of the zeros or the X-intercept. And then we will solve for the Y-intercept. Which will serve as your third turning point. Ayan, yan lang yung hanapin natin. And the multiplicity pala. Then the multiplicity of each factor. So to find again the zeros of the given fourth degree polynomial function, we will equate each factor by 0. Okay? So we have x minus 1 squared and we will equate it by 0. So to cancel the square here, we will extract. No? So, magiging siyang x minus 1 equals square root of 0, that is 0. And then, transpose lang natin. So, we have now 1 as the first 0. And then, the second one, ganun lang din, same procedure. No? So, we have x plus 2 squared is equal to 0. So, extract lang natin. And then we have x plus 2 equals 0. X is equal to negative 2. Okay, so we have we have 1 and negative 2 as the zeros of the polynomial function. And the multiplicity, kung ilang beses lumabas yung factor na yun sa given polynomial function natin, si quantity x minus 1, dalawang beses, ayun yung multiplicity. Naka-base din kasi yun sa degree. Okay, so 2, and then si quantity x plus 2, 2 times. Okay, so now, to get the y-intercept, just like what we did a while ago sa third degree polynomial function, we will assume that x is equal to 0 for us to solve the value of y, okay, or the f of x. So we have f of 0, and then we have 0 minus 1 squared, quantity 0 minus 1 squared times quantity 0 plus 2 squared. And then we will simplify. So 0 minus 1, that is equal to negative 1 squared, times 0 plus 2, that is 2 squared. So f of 0, negative 1 squared, that is equal to 1, 2 squared, that is equal to 4. So f of 0, yung y-intercept, or yung value ng y mo is equal to 4. Okay? But then, we need to make it into an ordered pair. So we will write 0 as your x and then 4 as your y. So yun, kailangan nakasulat sa ordered pair kasi we need to plot this. This will be kasi your third turning point. Okay? So ordered pair 0 and 4. And then we need also to write the zeros as an ordered pair. So 1 and -2 is the value of the x's in your ordered pair. And y is always equal to 0. Kasi nga x-intercept sila eh. Kaya yung y equals siya sa 0. Kapag naman y-intercept, yung x equals siya sa 0. So we have -2 and 0 there. So we have this value. Now that we have these values, we can now sketch the graph of this given fourth degree function. So I'm just going to write the x-intercepts. Okay? So dalawa lang yon. So we have 1, 0, -2, 0. Ayan. And then, we need to write also yung y-intercept. So the y-intercept is this one. So 0, 4. So yeah, now that we have our x-intercepts and y-intercept, let's now sketch the graph. So 1, 0, this will be here. Yan, and then -2 and 0. And then the y-intercept 0, 4. Yeah. Now, we have the first, second, and third turning point. Sila na din yung turning points, di ba? And then, just like I discussed a while ago, hindi ko pala napakita ko yung graph pero hindi ko na-explain. Okay? So, ito yung itsura ng graph ng mga fourth degree polynomial function. So, unlike dun kanina sa third degree polynomial function, ang itsura kasi ng graph doon ay parang letter N. Okay? Sa fourth degree polynomial function, parang siyang letter W. Okay? Pwede yung W and then inverted na W. So, ganun yung pwede niya maging itsura or illustration. So, how do we graph this? No, kailangan alam din natin yung characteristics ng graph. So, we have the fourth degree polynomial function. Ang sign ng leading coefficient natin is positive. So, the starting point of the graph is upwards and the end point should also be upwards. So, kapag ginrap natin dito, magsisimula tayo sa taas, it should be upwards kasi. Okay, so, starting from here, and then, sharp yung edges. So, it can't be sharp, no? Dapat smooth curve. Hindi na exact dun sa Y-intercept. Nakaka-frustrate siya. Yeah, let's say that is the illustration or the graph of the given polynomial function. So it looks like letter W. And then I am going to look for the characteristics below the graph. No, pag nag-solve na kayo in your test. So yeah, this is the graph of a fourth degree function. Yeah, this is an example of the graph of a fourth degree function according sa given natin yan yung graph niya. And then you're going to write the characteristics of the graph or yeah, the characteristics of the graph below the graph itself. No, hindi ko lang masulat kasi nagmo-move yung letters dun sa kabila, no? So the characteristics of the graph, again, I'm going to look for the degree, the sign of the leading coefficient, and then the starting and end point. So it's either upwards or downwards lang dito sa dalawa. And then the number of turning points. Ayan. So in our example, the degree of the polynomial function given is in the fourth degree. Okay? And then the sign of the leading coefficient is positive. The starting point is, according sa graph, upwards and endpoints upwards din. Hindi nyo according sa condition kapag positive yung sign ng leading coefficient. Dapat pareho silang upwards. And then the number of turning points, that is n minus 1 or the degree minus 1, we have 4 minus 1, that is equal to 3. Okay? So that is how you graph a third and fourth degree polynomial function.